Welcome to our newest episode about the Battle of Stalingrad. Subscribe our channel and enjoy. The Battle of Stalingrad was a major confrontation of World War II that took place between August 1942 and February 1943 in the city of Stalingrad, located in southwestern Russia. It was a critical battle between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union that marked a turning point in the war on the Eastern Front. The battle began with a massive German offensive to capture Stalingrad, a key industrial city on the banks of the Volga River. The German army, led by General Friedrich Paulus, quickly advanced into the city and seized large areas of territory. However, the Soviet Union launched a counteroffensive that surrounded the German army, trapping them inside the city. The battle for Stalingrad became a brutal and protracted struggle as both sides fought for control of the city, which was reduced to rubble by the intense fighting. The Germans suffered from severe supply shortages, and their troops were constantly subjected to Soviet air attacks and artillery fire. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union poured in troops and resources to reinforce their positions and wear down the German army. After months of fighting, the German army was unable to sustain its position in Stalingrad, and on February 2, 1943, General Paulus surrendered his remaining troops to the Soviet Union. The battle was a significant victory for the Soviet Union, as it demonstrated the strength of their army and the determination of their people to defend their homeland. It also marked a turning point in the war on the Eastern Front, as the Soviet Union began to push back against the German army and gain momentum in the war. The Battle of Stalingrad was one of the bloodiest battles in human history, with an estimated 1.7 million casualties on both sides. It is considered one of the most important battles of World War II and a key moment in the history of the Soviet Union. The battle was fought in extremely harsh winter conditions, with temperatures reaching as low as -30 degrees Celsius. Both sides suffered from frostbite, illness, and malnutrition in addition to the physical wounds of battle. The German army initially made rapid progress into the city, but they were ultimately unable to secure key strategic positions due to the tenacity of Soviet resistance. The Soviet Union was able to hold on to crucial areas, including the city's factories and the banks of the Volga River, which allowed them to continue to receive supplies and reinforcements. The Battle of Stalingrad was characterized by fierce urban combat, with soldiers fighting in close quarters and using improvised weapons such as grenades, bayonets, and even their bare hands. The city's buildings and rubble provided cover for snipers and made it difficult for either side to move large numbers of troops. The Soviet Union was able to gain a tactical advantage by digging a network of underground tunnels and trenches beneath the city. These tunnels allowed Soviet soldiers to move undetected and launch surprise attacks on German positions. General Paulus, the German commander, was initially ordered by Hitler to hold on to the city at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing his entire army. However, he eventually realized the futility of the situation and surrendered his remaining troops to the Soviet Union. This marked the first time that a German field marshal had surrendered during World War II. The Battle of Stalingrad was a major propaganda victory for the Soviet Union, which used it to rally the population and build support for the war effort. It was also a significant blow to Nazi Germany's morale and military prestige, as it showed that the German army was not invincible. The battle had significant consequences for the rest of the war on the Eastern Front. It weakened the German army and forced them to fight a defensive war, which allowed the Soviet Union to gain momentum and push the Germans back towards Germany. It also demonstrated the importance of urban warfare and the resilience of Soviet soldiers, which would be crucial in future battles such as the Siege of Leningrad. The battle was fought not only by soldiers, but also by civilians who were caught in the middle of the fighting. The city's population was largely evacuated before the battle, but many civilians remained behind and became trapped in the city as the battle raged. They faced starvation, disease, and bombardment from both sides. The Soviet Union's victory at Stalingrad was due in part to the strategic leadership of General Georgy Zhukov. Zhukov, who had been previously demoted by Stalin, was put in charge of the Soviet counteroffensive and successfully coordinated the efforts of multiple Soviet armies to encircle the German army. The Battle of Stalingrad was the first major defeat for Nazi Germany on the Eastern Front, and it marked the beginning of the end of their campaign to conquer the Soviet Union. After the battle, the German army was on the defensive, and the Soviet Union began to take the initiative in the war. The battle was also significant for its impact on the civilian population of the Soviet Union. The city of Stalingrad became a symbol of Soviet resistance and resilience, and the victory at Stalingrad helped to build national unity and pride among Soviet citizens. The Battle of Stalingrad was one of the most devastating battles in history in terms of casualties. Estimates vary, but it is believed that between 1.2 million and 2 million people were killed, wounded, or captured during the battle. The battle had a significant impact on the rest of World War II. It forced Nazi Germany to divert troops and resources away from other fronts, and it weakened their military and industrial capacity. It also encouraged the Allies to increase their support for the Soviet Union, and it paved the way for the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. The Battle of Stalingrad is considered one of the largest and bloodiest battles in human history, and it lasted for nearly 6 months, from August 1942 to February 1943. The German army's initial plan was to capture the city of Stalingrad and then push further south to gain control of the Caucasus oil fields. However, their advance was slowed down by fierce Soviet resistance, and they were ultimately forced to fight for control of the city block by block. The city of Stalingrad was an important industrial center for the Soviet Union, and the Germans hoped to cut off the city's supply lines and cripple Soviet industry. However, Soviet factories in Stalingrad continued to produce weapons and ammunition even as the city was under siege. The Battle of Stalingrad was fought using a variety of weapons and tactics. The German army relied heavily on tanks and artillery, while the Soviet Union made extensive use of snipers, machine guns, and anti-tank weapons. The battle also saw the widespread use of flamethrowers, which were used to clear out buildings and underground tunnels. The battle had a significant impact on the civilian population of Stalingrad. Many civilians were killed or injured during the fighting, and those who survived faced extreme hardships such as starvation, disease, and homelessness. The battle also resulted in widespread destruction of the city's buildings and infrastructure. The Battle of Stalingrad was a turning point in World War II, as it marked the first major defeat for Nazi Germany and paved the way for the eventual defeat of the Axis powers. The German army used a variety of tactics to try to break through the Soviet lines, including flamethrowers, smoke grenades, and high-explosive shells. They also used aircraft to bomb the city and drop supplies to their trapped soldiers. The Soviet Union's victory at Stalingrad was due in part to the use of deception and surprise. Soviet troops disguised themselves as German soldiers to infiltrate enemy lines and gather intelligence, and they also launched surprise attacks on German positions. The Battle of Stalingrad saw some of the most intense and brutal close-quarters combat in history. Soldiers on both sides fought for control of individual buildings and rooms, and many hand-to-hand fights took place using bayonets, knives, and other weapons. The battle had a significant impact on the mental health of soldiers who fought there. Many soldiers suffered from combat stress, depression, and other psychological problems as a result of the brutal and prolonged fighting. The Battle of Stalingrad had a lasting impact on the city itself. Many buildings and landmarks were destroyed during the fighting, and the city had to be largely rebuilt after the war. Today, Stalingrad is known as Volgograd, and it remains a symbol of Soviet resistance and victory in World War II. Thank you for watching. Subscribe our channel and see you in next episodes.